Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Aussie Minifan Show. I'm your co-host, the New Manners, and the New Manners does not use jokes like Ned Snark is as dumb as he is handsome. There'll be none of that stuff in the show. And joining me, as ever, is Aussie Stooley. Jamie, how are you?
Not too bad, Manners. It's good to be back. It's been too long. The people need the Aussies in their life.
Exactly. I've obviously had a pretty harrowing history on the KMS YouTube network, and I feel like it's affected the sort of longevity of the Aussie Minifan show. So I want to now bring it back. We're going back to our roots, which is being diehard Aussie fans. You're on the move, Jamie.
Yes, the wind is picking up where I am. So
Good. But yeah, I want to get back to our roots of being diehard fans from Australia that are working to get the Kirk Minahan show down under for a live show. So that's the thing. It's going to be a lot nicer. We're going to be the nice Aussies that we used to be, where we're not throwing too much shit. I obviously have this problem that when I go on air, I say horrible things about people, and I want to try and get over that. So the new manners is here. Aussie Story hasn't changed, but let's get straight into the show chat. So last week we had a lot of criticism leveled at the show by the dumb Mintels and the old OGs. Do you think the show's been good lately since Mike's been away?
I mean, it hasn't been terrible. Like, it hasn't been as bad as they say it is. It's not as good as it was with Mike. I don't know if it's just too much Steve or not, but there was that element that Mike added of like the punching bag. He was the Mutt, the Chris Curtis, the Ken Laird. I know Kirk hates those references because this is what he always dreamed of, but the three people dynamic is better. And I miss Mike. I love Steve on politics, but it's been a little bit too much politics at the last couple of weeks. And I get because of the election and all that type of shit, but a little bit too much politics. Need to get down to the brass roots of the Kirk Minahan show: parody songs, prank phone calls, and shitting on the enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like
Terrible.
The show hasn't been as funny as it was, obviously, when Mike was there, and I haven't quite had the incentive to listen to the shows again like I normally do. I don't know about you. Sometimes I'm like, I want to listen twice, or even things like the shows being shorter. Like, I haven't cared. Like, for me, like 70, 80 minutes of Kirk and Steve is enough. And I love Kirk. I love listening to him, but I just feel that it's just been a bit bland.
Yeah, I agree. The whole time thing, like, it doesn't really matter. Kirk every day is Kirk every day. It's more than we deserve. And fucking an hour and a half, 80 minutes is still more than what he's supposed to give to us. So he still, Podcast Jesus still gives to the fans. But yeah, it's just Steve can be funny, but Blind Mike just makes it more funny. Like, Blind Mike is just a generally funny person, and it's not on purpose. I know he wishes it was on purpose, but just general Blind Mike is just funny. Like,
yeah, he is
everything
funny.
he says. Yeah,
exactly. Just quickly, you can order merchandise now for the show Down Under. Have you placed your order yet, Jamie?
Not yet. There's some other things. There's some other things I've got to purchase first, and I just moved, so it was a bit of a thing going from one side of the city to the other. In God's country now, but
I've got like 4 of these now. I'm always Kirk Minahan show branded. My chief criticism is of Steve as the producer in this show. I think he's completely fucked this whole time that Mike's been away. I think he's shown a distinct lack of imagination, and the show has suffered. Not badly. It's still a good show. It's still one of the best podcasts around. Not quite as good as Bad Signal, but it's pretty good. And I just feel like Steve has wasted a golden opportunity to have some fun with the fact that Mike was out. So I think getting in the odd third person would have been the way to go for Steve. And they bring up all these excuses about who do you get in, or would they be any good on air? But I think that had they got some people in, it would have given content, because even if they suck, that means the day after you come on and you shred them and say how bad they were. And I even would have liked some Minifans going in, like Steve from Providence, or even Kevin from Bristol, those kind of people going in for one show and Kirk kind of picking them apart. I think would have added to the last couple of months without Mike. Just throw the book out the window. You don't have to replace Mike, but get
Yeah.
people in for the odd third chair to make the show more entertaining. And as I said, if someone's terrible, then that gives you 2 or 3 days of audio you can just pick apart and have fun with.
It gives you more drops as well.
Exactly. Anyone you would have liked to have seen come in?
Well, I like Carabas. I really like him being on there. Red Sox homer, massive tour, almost like Kirk says, a blank slate. So I love having him in. I like to see him coming in every week.
I mean, even someone like Courtney Fallon, and I'm not.
I was going to say her. Like,
I'm not sure if there's any sort of problems with the fact that she's got a podcast that's not with Barstool, but just someone like her for a show, just see what she can do. She seems like she's in on the joke. As I said, even if it wasn't good, it gives you content.
Yeah, I think she would. I think she'd actually be good because I think she would actually go at Kirk, and deep down, Kirk likes her. Like she mentioned on her show, I listened to it the other day when she was shredding Will, that she texted about it with Kirk. So Kirk's obviously, he likes her. He wouldn't have texted back the way he did if he didn't like her. So get her on the show, even if it's like you said, for one episode, it could be shit. But then the next day or the rest of the week, they're going to be able to shit on it. They'll have more drops. They'll have more audio, things like that. Like take a chance on someone that might not be good, could end up being even better. Like. Minifan wise, I think Kevin from Bristol would be great. I think he would make Kirk a little bit uncomfortable, but he's also funny. Give John from Scranton a chance.
No way. That is the terrible idea. He is terrible on air. He is terrible on air. I don't know if we need to go that low, but look, I agree with you. Carabas is fun. Carabas is fun, or Carabas. So you look at a week then. So if Steve had got off his ass and organized Carabas once a week, and they'd got one more person in another time in the week for a bit of fun, that means 2 of the 5 shows there's a third chair, which I think would have been a good start. I would have probably gone 3 of the 5, and I will say, Jamie, that it's not easy for Steve to produce the show and be a good offsider for Kirk.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. You're pushing buttons, you're organizing calls, you're putting in drops, and then you might miss something or you miss the joke sometimes. So it's not really Steve's fault. I just think he should have got off his fat fucking ass and done something. Even if Kirk said, well, I don't really like that idea. If Steve had said, well, I actually think it'd be good to get this person in for a show, let's do it. And I'm sure there's other people in the Boston area who both Kirk and Steve know that would have come in, even if they're, not people that are part of the world, but other people in media who must be looking for exposure. Getting them in for, as I said, one episode here and there just to mix things up would have been better. What do you got going on there, Jamie?
One of the roommates is making something in the microwave. I think, there's plenty of options. Coley Mick is back in Boston now. I know Kirk doesn't really think he's anything, but Coley Mick is an underrated, funny guy. When Kirk was on the Section 10 podcast ages ago now, Coley Mick doesn't take shit from Kirk. He will make jokes at Kirk's expense. So I think that would be really good. Him just in there without Jared Carabas. I don't know about the Lucy Burge situation. Is she still at EEI? I know she's furloughed, which means she probably can't.
Sure.
But if she
I'm not sure she's right fit for the show, but
he'd be able to go at her
kind
about
of
the
person.
courtesy.
Absolutely. You'd imagine her in there for an hour being grilled about what happened. I doubt she would have done that, but it would have been fun. And don't you think that since Mike's been away, there hasn't been enough Minifan world stuff? I know they sort of they try and steer away from making the show too much about the Minifan world, but I think there's a fair portion of the audience that likes that gossip and drama.
Yeah, we're a crazy, deranged fan base. It's content in its own. Justin and Minifans has created enough content, especially ever since he became a full-time employee. It just seems like Kirk's just ramped up his hate for Justin to another level. The minute I know he always says 90% of the audience isn't on Twitter or anything like that. Yeah, but they probably still like to hear what's going on. And it might get them onto the Twitter, which would boost their socials and things like that, which means Instagram, you get more for swipe ups and all that type of shit. So maybe don't make it too heavy, but once a week or something like that, if there's a big drama, because there's always drama in the Miniverse.
That's right.
Have a bit of a discussion,
Yeah. And what did you think of some of the episodes? So did you like when Kirk went off at the Mintel guys?
Yes and no. I like John from Scranton. He's helped me out with my own thing, which I won't go into, and he's just a general good
problem. Or sorry.
No, my own side project away from
sorry.
the
Okay.
Miniverse,
Yeah.
which some Minifans are a fan of. But yeah, he's helped me out there a lot, and he's always good to bounce ideas off. I've been trying to write parody songs and things like that and get them sorted out, and he's good to help out there. Phil just seems like he needs to just stop listening to the show. Like the Miniverse just doesn't seem like it's for him. He's either copying shit from everyone or trying to get people to put shit on him. So, and same with BA. BA was great at the start, but it seems like they've just soured on the show a bit, and maybe it's just time to focus a bit more on PMT. Not shit on PMT. I listened to that as well, but yeah, maybe the Miniverse is just a bit too much at the moment for you because when it comes, it comes.
You have to listen if you're going to criticize.
Yeah, you can't be putting shit on if you're not listening. Like I listen every day, like you said. Some of the episodes recently have been hard to re-listen to, but I just go back into time, like just pick a random episode and listen to it again because it was fucking comedy gold back in the day. But you still have to be listening to every show to understand what's going on and to shit on the show. Like it's not been as awesome as it was, pre-COVID. But I mean, things change. Kirk wants to move the show in a little bit of a different direction, do a little bit more things. We just have to take that balance of what it used to be and what it is becoming and just lay with it. Not every episode is going to be Cullen in my mind.
I agree. And it's like we're saying that what other podcasts would you criticize because you can't listen to it twice? That's a sort of amazing standard that Kirk has set. But I just feel like it's got to be bland. What about, say, when they did like the Robertson Report last week? Did you enjoy that? You enjoyed that one?
I'm not gonna lie, I love that. The Steve treating Kirk like shit dynamic was great.
That was funny.
That was really good. The callers probably let him down as they generally do, but I think Steve was as hard as a rock doing that show. He would have gone home and just fucked the shit out of his missus. That's how hard he would have been doing that show. Like, Kirk, let me do politics. He let me do politics. Oh man. But it was Steve in his element. He was pretty funny too. Political joke Steve is not bad. It's when, Steve tries to be funny with things that he's not as well versed in. That's when it can kind of let him down. But no, I love the Robertson Report. I'd love to see that at least once a week, like Kirk sort of threw it out there.
Yeah, Steve's a terrific guy, wonderful guy. I just think maybe he could have pushed Kirk in this period and seen this opportunity without Mike to sort of throw the book out the window and do some crazy stuff. And even if some of it annoyed Kirk, that would have been content. But look, it's still an amazing podcast. Unlike the Mintel fuckwits, I listen every day. The first thing I do when I get up is I look for the latest KMS show.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any inkling about what this new project could be, and how would you feel if the show went to 3 days a week?
I honestly have no fuck. I have plenty of ideas of what the new show is going to be. Like, I feel like it's going to be a more of an investigative sort of, not current affairs sort of thing, but like issues that really piss Kirk off, like corrupt-wise, sort of fraud-wise. And it's going to be more sort of like that. He hinted at the Cullen investigation, the Globe investigation that they were working with Steve and MHB back in the day. It's probably going to be something similar to that. Whether or not it is, it
not
could be
more Cullen, please. No more Cullen.
No, not like that scripted sort of stuff, but like, where they investigated into Cullen and his tweets and the stories in the past, that sort of investigative sort of stuff. Going to 3 shows a week. I don't know. I listen every day. I'll be halfway through another fucking podcast. Like I was halfway through the Dave Portnoy show podcast the other day and the Kirk Min show dropped and I was bang straight onto that. I'll come back to the Dave Portnoy show. It's must listen to content. So if it drops back to 3 days a week, I don't know. I mean, if he ups the time, like he said, it was going to be 3 shows. It'll be 2 hours each. 6 hours a week is pretty good. I guess I could accept it. I mean, it's like I'm not going to listen. Like
you're not going to listen to the protest.
I'm a junkie for KMS. Like I can't not listen to Kirk. So I'll always be here. But yeah, it would suck. It would definitely suck.
You're not happy. From my perspective, I have such a lot of faith in Kirk and what he's able to do. I actually, enjoyed Enough About Me where Kirk did those long form interviews. So if there was more of that, I would be happy with that. I also enjoyed when Kirk was at EEI and doing the investigative stuff, as you talked about. He's a very good kind of pseudo wannabe journalist, Kirk. So I think that therefore, whatever he turns to, I have faith will be excellent. And if we're getting the regular show a few days a week, and then the other days we're getting something else. I think that's going to be fantastic because I just have faith in his talent, being the greatest broadcaster in history to be able to pull this off. I do feel like at the moment, though, this project is sucking a bit of oxygen out of the real show. It's kind of like their focus is on what they're doing, and the Kirk Minahan show is a little aside that they do to fill in the sort of gaps kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, I mean, that episode last week where they cut it halfway through because they had to go do something for the other show and came back and it was just, they were on a roll in that show. When they come back from it, it was just
point out
gone.
something there to give you an idea of how slack Steve can be as a producer? I think just before the cut, there was like, someone asked someone a question and they didn't even give an answer. They just said, oh, we're back with calls. So,
I think it was like, I just got a call. We're going to go do this now. It was something like that Kirk said to Steve, and he left it into the show.
I know.
And then they came back. It's like, all right, so what did you do calls? Like,
I know. It's very strange producing from Steve, and he often leaves things in the show that you shouldn't. But there is time pressure, and I don't want to criticize him. He's a wonderful man. I've been critical of him in the past, but the new man has a lot more feelings of affection for the lovely Steve Robertson. Before you but I wanted to ask you, you said the Dave Portnoy show. I've been loving that podcast, him and Eddie.
Yep.
I've also started listening to BFFs, Dave's other podcast. Have you listened to that?
I'm not on there. Not a chance. I fucking hate everything about TikTok. These people are fucking crazy. Teenage
honestly,
millionaires.
It's funny. It is funny. It is really funny. I think you would like it. It's kind of a bit of the KMS style where it's, very inside stuff. It's all about gossip. It's actually very entertaining. I'm not a TikToker, but yeah, BFFs it's like if Kirk were doing a podcast with TikTokers. That's what it feels to me like.
All right, I might give it a listen. If it's all gossipy, that's good. I just didn't want them to be talking about promoting their videos and, oh yeah, this one got this many likes. Like, I want to hear them talking shit about each other and the other TikTok houses, as they will.
It's entertaining, trust me.
The Dave Portnoy show is entertaining. Just
Dave is just gossip.
Yeah, I want Kirk on that show as well. I think that would be fucking hilarious for at least one episode. Eddie trying to deal with both of them, like going at each other, would be great.
Yeah, there are shades of Kirk in both those two shows. I wonder if Portnoy's gleaned anything from Kirk. I mean, but he doesn't listen to Kirk. It's hard to tell.
Listen to anything.
So bring on the new project. Now, I want to clear up a few things from my point of view, and I've had a rocky relationship in the last few months with Kirk and the show, and I've actually tried to call in to the show a few times to sort this out on air with Kirk, but because of the time difference and stuff, it's really hard to get through. But before, what do you think of the Dr. Lance OBGYN special? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it worked?
It wasn't his best work. All right. Cullen was up there as one of the best things he's ever done. The Dr. Lance thing, I get the fun around shitting on MHB and DEC and being pussies and stuff like that. I just think it would have been better if Mike was there, I think. Mike is the offsider as opposed to Steve would have been better because, I mean, Mike is a comedian in quotation marks, so he would have been able to run with it more. Steve, I don't know. There's only so much Kirk can do to make things great. It wasn't terrible. Like, I think I listened to it 3 or 4 times just to try and like it, but it wasn't Cullen. Like,
no. So, I mean, I tweeted out my score for that and it was 33 out of 100. And Kirk was not a fan of that. And, before I get into his reaction, I do want to say that, I don't think the concept worked. And I know Kirk has a philosophy of not listening to his own stuff, but I think when you try these concepts, it would be valuable for Kirk to listen to them before they go out, because quite practically, I just don't think the sounds and everything worked in that show. Like, I don't think what they were trying to do was achieved. And I think you kind of got lost in this sort of just babble. But I feel if Kirk had listened back to it, he could have gone, yeah, that didn't work. I'm going to do it better next time.
Whereas I think he because there was a lot of backlash for that episode. Like, the Cullen episode, there were people that didn't like it, but the majority of the people who said how great it was, whereas this one, it was almost, 60-40 people that didn't like it to people that did. So if he listens back and go, yeah, look, that didn't work out. Next time we do this better. Like you said, the sounds were a little bit much. There was way too much sound effects, needed more dialogue. That's where the funniness was. There's only so many times you can hear a vacuum sucking out the pussy where it's funny, where eventually it just becomes too much.
But on the other hand, Jamie, I have no issue with them trying these things. I think if you do 5 shows a week and one was a dud one week, who cares? I mean, I'm not one of those people that feels aggrieved like we didn't get our show, but objectively, as someone who does keep a check and balance of things on the show and the network, or formerly, old man is used to, I just think that was a failure. And the shocking part for me, though, was, Jamie, was how upset Kirk got at me. And he DM'd me, and I'm sort of not going to dox his DMs, but they were the usual stuff. I'm a moron. Find another podcast, fuck off, that kind of thing. And he sort of said at the end of it, oh, I'm kidding. But I don't think he was kidding. I think sometimes I forget in particular how sensitive creators are generally. And then, if I'm insulting someone's work and, maybe surprisingly Kirk respects my opinion, then he genuinely got upset about it. And and it was sort of a weird back and forth. And then I felt at the end of it that I kind of had to reassure him. And there's nothing weirder than having to reassure one of your heroes. So I sort of, I didn't backpedal on my criticism of Dr. Lance, but I said, I still think you're amazing. It was just one bad show. Everybody can have a bad day. I think you're the greatest broadcaster in history. It was just one. Like, I had to sort of reassure him. And then he went on the main show and said, oh, it was fake. Nothing fake about it. I just felt that, I didn't want to be the reason that Kirk went and stood in front of a train or something, because I rated his show 33 out of 100. And I guess, that was really confronting for me, how personally he takes this stuff. And we saw it with the Mintels last week. But let's not forget, this 33 out of 100, I'm using a rating system that was from the Cheers rewatch show. The whole thing's a parody. I just thought it would be funny to use that rating system and then rate everything in the same way Chris would. So for it to turn and so nasty, and then me having to sort of try and make Kirk feel better about the mark, it was very strange. And as I said, I've just sort of realized how sensitive Kirk is. And it's made me sort of look at things a bit differently now.
I mean, he'll tell you himself that he's sensitive. Like, he really cares. Like, you watch when Jerry used to shit on Enough About Me, you could shit on his kids or anything, but you shit on that podcast, he'll fucking go back at you. So he's trying something. It didn't work, but he doesn't really like taking criticism well. And when it's from, the preeminent raider in the Miniverse, he's going to take a little bit of offense, but it could be just a little bit of a fact that he also knew that, hey, maybe we did miss on this one, but that made him angry. True. So he was taken out of the people that criticized it. So I didn't tweet anything about the show. I didn't say it was great. I didn't say it was shit. I just sort of, I listened.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to hear him totally eviscerate DC and MHB and go through the audio and pick apart all the bullshit, even if it wasn't screaming and calling them cunts, even if it was just pointing out all the stupid things they said and the hypocrisy and everything. But we didn't get that. And they tried something, it didn't work. And as I said, now I will just tread a little bit carefully around my criticism of Kirk, because I know he has a sensitive soul. And it's confronting having to sort of reassure a hero, like someone you put up in a pedestal, and then you realize, okay, I have to actually boost them up again. It was very strange. And that led to Kirk blocking me. And breaking news, Jamie, I was unblocked today. So
today
I was unblocked. It feels a lot better, because I was sick of going into my other Twitter accounts to look and see what Kirk was tweeting about. But I was unblocked. So I'm really glad about that. I don't think I ever should have been blocked. I've been a significant contributor to the KMS world. I've always said I love the show. I've never been one of these critics. There are things about it might annoy me, but so look, I was really upset about being blocked. Obviously it's over now. It was a pretty terrible period in my life, but it's good to move past it.
Weird that it's today, the day that the Aussie Minifan show returns.
That's right. Maybe he knows. He's getting ready to hear what's going to happen.
I'll be blocked tomorrow morning.
Now, I guess to finish off this, I want to go through the YouTube channel and answer some questions from the viewers. But I mean, our aim is still to get Kirk out here. And the
Yep.
reality is with COVID, it's taken a bit of a back seat because the
Yeah.
international borders are closed. But if this vaccine goes through and if the rollout goes ahead as predicted, there is a real chance we could get the Kirk Minahan show in Australia in 2022. And I reiterate my offer. I'm happy to be the tour director. I'm happy to be the Australian producer of the show. If Kirk, say, doesn't want to come out here, if Steve, sorry, doesn't want to come out here, he wants to stay in Boston. So I could produce, but I would love Steve to come out. I'd like to meet SC Robertson and give him a big hug and just try and repair the relationship, because it's got nasty at times. And I feel bad. I didn't realize when I would hate Steve, how many other people like really hated him. Really, really hated him. Like really wanted to dig into his past and find anything. So yeah, we are aiming for Minicon 2022 in Australia. As I've said, it'll be a tour of the country. Latino Kirk said he wants to come. So LK's coming. Start in Sydney, head up north to the rainforest, then into the middle to Ayers Rock. Oh, sorry, Uluru. We'll get cancelled.
Gotta be sensitive, yeah.
but that is the plan. So I know that overseas travel might seem a long way for a lot of viewers out there, but just keep in your mind, Australia 2022.
We can all go down to the pub, all the Minifans that want to meet us, and have a schooner at the pub. I know you guys call them bars, but we call them pubs here, and they're fucking open, and the schooners are cold. So you're good to have a beer with so many fucking Minifans. And Steve from Providence, I will shout you. I know money's a little bit tight, but if you can get here, I'll buy you a beer.
And he can sleep on your floor, no doubt, and shit in one of your socks. Floor. Can he shit in one of your socks? He likes to do that at Kirk Minahan show events.
I guess. I mean, I got some old socks he can use. So
beautiful.
Whatever he wants to do in my socks.
Now, the YouTube channel's been very quiet lately, but I have to say, All Aboard has improved immensely since taking my advice. I told them they should all be a bit more argumentative between them. And in the last few weeks, despite saying they weren't going to take my advice, they have. So the show's been better. Have you ever watched that one?
I watched a few of the early episodes.
Yeah, they were terrible.
I like Ned Snark, Lieutenant Kirk, and Adam. So I tried to be in on it, but I don't know. The History Buffs was good, but I like the History Buffs.
Well, I'm going to get there in a sec, but I don't like History Buffs because I think that they are taking the most boring approach to history, and they should be debating topics. Rather than just let's talk about something, like let's argue or argue a point, or try and make it a debate, even like have a couple on each side and you're trying to argue about something, did the Russians win the Second World War? And then you argue about that or something like that, or was Vietnam worthwhile, whatever it is. But yeah, so I think that's pretty boring. All Aboard, though, they've gone past Adam and Ned just talking about their boring lives. So that's why it's improved.
I want to hear about Ned's life when he was like a college student, because I reckon that's a pretty fun time for Ned's life.
I think Ned's all show. He's a pretty face, but not a lot of substance. Sorry, take that back. Justin, if you can just bleep that out. The Rundown is pretty good. You should watch that. Ziggy carries that show. This
is my thing. I have the podcast, the KMS Rewind podcast, but the last few episodes I've listened to before I stopped listening, it was just all like highlights for the show with some music backing. I'm like, no, I want to hear them discuss the shit from the show. Like, I don't need to just hear the rewind. I listen to all the fucking shows. Like,
so I'll just explain the way the feed works, Jamie. So on that feed, John releases the Rundown as a separate episode. So just look out for that. Sometimes it's the rewind where it's highlights, and then it's the Rundown in between. So just look out for that. It comes out once a week. I said it's a good chat show. Ziggy's the star of that show.
I do like it. I did reach out to be on it when it first came out, and I just never heard anything back. So just like Mike and the Minifans, Justin and the Minifans, just
yeah. And the latest Justin and the Minifans was very good. It took a break for a couple of weeks, but I enjoyed Tony Cass. I think that's his name. He was interesting.
Tony?
Yeah, he was good. And even Fez, who who normally I don't like, but he made me laugh. When you can understand him through his speech impediment, I think it's nice to have someone with special needs on the network. I think it's good that we're sort of open now that Mike's not here. We need to sort of fill that disabled quota. So, that's good. But it's a good show. Channel Zero is great. KMS Brews,
Fucking love it.
Unmissable, New Minahan Blues. I mean, how could you criticize that show? I mean, it doesn't have a second of entertainment value in it, but how could you criticize it? I don't know. So that's the YouTube network. It's a pretty harrowing state. You obviously don't watch a lot of it.
It needs Menace to Midnight.
It's never coming back.
It just needs it. It's on Menace Live or something. Menace Live was the most polarizing thing on the YouTube. That was when the YouTube network was in a peak. Everyone, you were the source of conversation for every other show. You'd always pop up somewhere. You were the butt of jokes in early Better Than It Used to Be episodes. Like the network, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody except for that fucking drip Go for Geary, needs Menace Live.
Oh, thanks. It's not happening though. And then finally, Kirking off.
Guys.
And this is actually what prompted this return, Jamie. So there's that Kirking off. Have you subscribed to that? It's is it Blind Mike's? Who is it? Blind Mike's daddy, I think, is one of the hosts, and it's a podcast. Him and someone else, and they talk about the show stuff. And they had Tim in Canton 2 weeks ago, who was really good. And last week they had John from Scranton, who was pretty awful. And what was particularly awful about him, apart from everything he says, is he completely forgot about the Aussie Minifan show when talking about what started the new YouTube network. I mean, we were one of the first shows on there and still going. And he was talking about famous short shows and forgot the show that was 25 minutes long because Steve was suspended. So John's got to lay off the ganja because his fucking brain cells have disappeared. But Kirking off, you'd like that. I think you'd like.
Okay,
Kirking off.
if it talks about if it's anything about the show, I'll listen to it. It's the ones that are like a bit self-indulgent that don't really talk about the show, like Quantum Week. Although he's saying that.
So tell me, what's your gripe with Quantum Week?
I just think it was good at the start. I like the concept of it. It's just gotten a bit boring. That the whole who did we fight with? The
Lamely?
The Lamely, yeah. That sort of rocketed them up in the Miniverse, but they've sort of taken that and pushed it to a different level. Like it's more about them now. Like if it wasn't for the show, like Kirk says it all the time, if it wasn't for the Kirk Minahan show, they wouldn't have a podcast or it wouldn't be doing the numbers it does. They talk about the Intel guys being clout chasers and stuff like that. But I mean, look at Quantum Week. Matt goes on the show, and talks about it nonstop. Granted, Kirk brings it up, but it's almost like they're the ultimate of clout chasers going for Minifan listens. It's like you'd love to see it.
They've got paid shows now as well. You go on Patreon,
they're behind
pay for extra shows and stuff.
I'd like to see the numbers on how many Minifans are, what percentage of Minifans are for your thing. Like I know you can see stats of what towns and countries your listeners are from. I'd love to see a Minifan, non-Minifan breakdown because I reckon 90+% of it would be Minifan listeners because there are a fucking shit ton out there. There are a lot of Minifans that like movies and things like that. I mean, I'm okay with movies. My roommate's a big movie guy, so we'll be watching movies with them. But yeah, I just think they're the ultimate in clout chasers. Kirk can't shit on the likes of John from Scranton, BA, and Mintel Phil when the only reason that Quantum Week is still around is because he promoted it on the show.
They get off easy.
Yeah. But that's Kirk, man. He has his favorites. I mean, Matt does things for the show. You hear he'll drop in as a producer sometimes. He does write some pretty funny parody songs. I mean, Rape is the best thing I've ever heard. I'd love to play that driving around town. Shout out Kirk there. But I just think, ultimate in class. He has his favorites, like I said, that he'll go after. If like you, he'll go after you. Like I'm sure we're going to cop some shit on the show eventually, maybe.
I've been very nice on this show. Don't think there'll be any blowback. I love Chris, but I stick to my original point when he says he used to do improv. I don't know how someone like him can think they're funny because everything he does is the Cheers rewatch was fine, but terrible concept. Then he started this terrible director's show with Ted. I mean, just wasting Ted's talent talking about movies that no one cares about and directors no one cares about. But I agree. Huge clout chasers, Matt and Chris. Huge clout chasers.
Yep.
All right. Now, to end this, we got some listener questions. I put the tweet out. So David from Hull, this is what he's asked.
Yeah, my boy.
Yeah. What are
That's
the
my boy.
chances you guys ever visit the States? Is it a realistic possibility of ever having a Menas v Steve nose to balls showdown? Well, his nose will be on my balls, let's be honest. So, Jamie, what are the chances of you making it to the States?
100%. I had my annual leave scheduled for February next year to go to Madawaska. I still have that, but I'm not allowed out of the country. So I was going to be in Madawaska this year. I discussed things with Steve to make sure I could next year, so I could have a ticket to make sure that I was at that show. I was all set to go, had Mrs. approval and everything like that. But fucking COVID, man. Like, sort your shit out, America. Like, get that COVID under control so we can come into the country. Like, I want to be there. I want to meet up with all my favorite Minifans and have a beer. Like, it's not our fault we can't go there.
I agree. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I was supposed to be there this year. I'm hoping to go next year. But Dave, I will give you a 100% Menas guarantee that I will be there. And I'm not sure whether I'll get the Steve nose to balls showdown because I'm not sure I'll be let that close to anyone in part of the show. But look, I'm going. So that's 100% guaranteed. Next question, Stacey from Madawaska's phone. Did you really stop Menace to Midnight because of a divorce? And are you going to come back or are you still afraid? So my marriage is as healthy as it's ever been. Next year, I'll have been married for 20 years. So there's a certain level of misery that comes with that, but I've accepted that. Menace to Midnight is dead. Menace Live is dead. Unfortunately, I cannot see them coming back. It would take some extreme circumstances, and it's not about being afraid. I have some disease that when the red light goes on, I just say horrible things about people, and it's not healthy. So at this stage, Stacey's phone, not happening. All right, this one's from you. This is from the 19-year-old Kermy, and he asks Jamie. He asked Jamie if he's going to let me run a train one of these days. Will you let Kermy drive a train?
No. Yeah. They pay me too much money to risk my job for something like that. I mean, when I first read that question, I didn't think it was about driving a train. So we'll just leave that there. But Kermy, I'd love to, man. There's so many people that probably ahead of line that have asked me to let them drive a train, but they pay me way too much money to let you do that. I'm sorry, man.
Good. Now, exasperated John King has asked, did I stop the show ratings because it's been objectively worse lately or for a different reason? Well, I really stopped the show ratings after the Dr. Lance score. I just felt that if I was upsetting Kirk that much with a rating, then probably wasn't worth it. So that's why I stopped. I just felt that the fun had sort of gone out of it. And people were taking them way too seriously. So I sort of stopped them. But because John sent in the question, I've decided to just rate the show since Mike left, and I'm giving it a solid 70 out of 100. I think that's still a pretty good mark. Not quite as good as, say, other podcasts, but, it's a pretty good mark considering.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good score. I mean, Kirk will admit, without Mike being there, it hasn't been as good. That's why they haven't replaced him, because Kirk will shit on Mike all he likes with lack of ambition and that stuff, but Mike's good, man. All those people hating that he's coming back next week, man, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, actually funny by shit on Steve, or just in his own way, like, I'm starting to regret doing it. That sort of drops. Like, Mike is a great part of the show, and I really hope he comes back full time. I love you, Mike. If you're listening, you're probably not, but I do love you, mate, and I hope you come back full time. But now, I do
Jamie,
like to rub us.
Anything else before we end this Aussie Minifan special number 4, building up to Minicon 2022?
I just want to say, fuck that Go for Geary guy. I know you're listening, you miserable cunt. Get laid. For fuck's sake, get laid. Like, I don't know. He's always popping up in my mentions.
There were some horrible Minifans. They were just, there's about 20 Minifans. I just want to get in the room and fucking machine gun them all, honestly.
But most of them, man, they're all good guys. Like, I have my ups and downs with VD, Visionless Dave, but, he's a top guy. I love him as a Minifan. You don't
we've had a rocky relationship. He's upset at me, so we were very close, but now it seems like that's over.
I mean, me and him just sometimes he'll be tweeting stuff I don't agree with, regards to his other podcast hosted by Smoking Hot Talent. But
Well, just
Yeah,
on
most of
that,
Minifan's good.
because it's the after show. Obviously, Will was sacked from Bad Signal, and then John from Scranton popped up on the latest Bad Signal.
Yes,
It
buried
feels
him.
like there's a bit of backstabbing going on there. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but yeah, some controversy. Will copped it in the back Brutus style from John, seemingly. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, what are your
I
thoughts?
was I was so excited that Will was going to be a part of that because I like Will. He's a funny guy, man. But when you hear the stories of the way Courtney talked about it and the way John was talking about what he saw from it, I mean, you gotta be better than that. Like, as someone who started a podcast, Courtney's putting her fucking life into that. That's what she wants. Like Kirk. Kirk will tell you this is everything he wanted. Radio.com wasn't going to give it to him. Barstool is. This is his show. This is his baby. It's his creative content. It's almost like the way Will treated it was like, yeah, it's not really a big deal. It's just a job for me. So I get why she got rid of him. Like, and I hope John from Scranton, sees her vision and does what she helps out with what she needs. I know in talking to John about, possibly going on that show, he wants that show to be successful just as much as he did the Mintel show and the Kirk Minahan show and everything that he helped out with the KMS world. So yeah, it was just a rough look, man. I like Will, but fuck, they buried him.
Yeah,
holy shit.
Will was not a right fit for that. And Kermie, you're a
No.
fucking idiot for suggesting him. I mean, it's the worst fit ever. The worst fit
Yeah.
ever. Will is a lovely guy, but producing a sort of NFL podcast, just terrible, 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 terrible.
If anything, Kermie's escaped a lot of backlash on this thing. He's the one who suggested it to her. I mean, shame on Courtney for taking the advice of a 19-year-old kid who should produce a show. But hey, that's her mistake. She lives and dies with that. I hope the show comes back better because if she does it the way she did that shitting on Will episode, that was pretty good. So
yeah,
I got to give her credit for that, and I'll be listening. Not as much as I listen to the Kirk show, but
well, that's it then, Jamie. Thanks for joining me. Viewers, thanks for tuning into the Aussie Minifan show number 4. We'll be back, probably next month or the month after with another update and let you know the border situation. But honestly, Minicon 2022, Sydney, be ready.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Later, guys.